Welcome to our community impact session today, titled Reaffirming Our Commitment to Racial Equity. You can see the two upcoming sessions on your screen, and we certainly hope that you're able to join us as we continue to talk about community impact work in action and how we are moving forward together with our partners during these challenging times. Our focus today is on our long-standing commitment to racial equity, and we have invited 4 speakers to share some important updates on this work. I will introduce our speakers in just a few moments, but first, for starters, wanted to start by talking about the Community Foundation's mission, which is connecting people, ideas, and resources to improve lives in Western New York. We have not wavered from this mission during the past 6 months. In fact, if anything, the crisis has underscored the unique and important role that we play when the unexpected happens. Today, you'll meet some of our partners who are working to create shared solutions, and you'll hear firsthand about the work we do at the request of our clients who have established permanent endowments to address the changing needs of this community over time. The drive of this long-term change work in our region embraces our role as stewards of these very precious charitable legacies. The foundation has prioritized 4 community goals through a thoughtful, strategic process. This deep analysis informs the foundation's efforts to determine the most pressing issues currently affecting our community and then decide where action is needed. Our current community goals are on your screen: to improve educational achievement and workforce readiness for residents living in low-income households, to increase racial ethnic equity, hence our topic today, protect and restore significant environmental resources and promote equitable access, which will be next week's conversation, and strengthen the region as a center for architecture, arts, and culture in 2 weeks. So we, again, are focusing on increasing racial ethnic equity today as we live this pivotal moment in our nation's history with an opportunity to make much needed change and close racial equity gaps to ensure that all residents in our community have fair and equitable opportunities to learn, to work, and to contribute. It's important to note a few statistics here on your screen that help frame the opportunity to close these gaps. We are the 3rd poorest large city in the nation and the 6th most segregated. Our region has an isolation index of 90%. That means that there is a 90% probability that a white person in our community will not have an interaction with a person of color on any given day. As our community and our country continue to diversify, we risk sending our kids and our grandchildren into the workforce without the necessary experiences to succeed in what is an increasingly more diverse workplace. So an opportunity we need to take quite seriously. Next slide. So the significance of an expanded, more inclusive economy is exponential. That is the goal of the Racial Equity Roundtable, an expanded, more inclusive economy, which holds great promise for each and every one of us, for all of us. By expanding our economy, car dealers sell more cars, realtors sell more homes, retailers sell more merchandise, and our tax base is expanded to share the cost of our quality of life. It is a win-win proposition. So it's about a healthier economy for our entire region so we can continue to grow and prosper. In 2015, the Community Foundation convened the Racial Equity Roundtable, a group of nearly 40 civic leaders who by position have the ability to affect change across sectors. With an additional 250 partners, some of you on this call today, we have been able to determine specific achievable steps that we can take to expand opportunity for everyone in our region. The work of the roundtable is focused on changing the institutions and structures that create barriers to fair and equitable opportunity for all. Many of these barriers were created long before we came into these institutions. So our role is to learn to see them and learn to change them and then work together to change them. So this is a 50,000-foot view of the work of the Racial Equity Roundtable, which is our leading initiative to advance racial equity, one among many. As you can see here, this is an effort that has 10 initiatives in play. 4 of them, the green circles you see at the top of your screen, are about tilling the soil and creating the conditions for change and building the capacity of the individuals in our community to lead this change. So they're about changing the narrative to a more authentic narrative that reframes this opportunity for growth. And they're about training and learning. So that work continues to create the conditions for change, while the 6 blue circles are focused on changing specific systems through collaborative efforts. So today, we are going to hear about 3 of these initiatives. As you look at the blue circles down below, you will see that they are dealing with the youth employment system, with the juvenile justice system, Employ Buffalo Niagara, which looks at workforce and a more inclusive workforce pipeline. The MBK Boys and Young Men of Color effort embedded within Say Yes to elevate our young men of color as leaders for systems change in our community. The Reentry Coalition and our Business Leaders Task Force, which is focused on strengthening inclusive workplace practices. Today, we selected 3 of these initiatives to present to all of you. So we will hear from the Buffalo Niagara Partnership and their diversity and inclusion initiative, which is at 2 o'clock on your screen. And then we're gonna also hear about the reentry work, which is one of our most further developed initiatives, and that's at 4 o'clock on your screen. And then you will also hear about one of our newest initiatives, the youth employment work, at 9 o'clock on your screen. So we are very pleased to highlight these 3 efforts to give you a sense of the broad spectrum of work that is underway, again, with 250 partners arrayed across these 10 initiatives, working together to achieve shared goals. So the impact of this work is best told, of course, by our partners. That is what defines the work that we're doing. And the first 2 speakers this afternoon are going to talk about the work of the Reentry Coalition and how together this coalition has moved forward with great urgency in the past few months. Now, while we wish that we could have speakers from all 10 initiatives, again, we're going to highlight these 3, and to actually keep us better on our scheduled time, we have videotaped the first of the 4 speakers so we can go deeper with our 3 panelists live. So Tom Dina is the superintendent at the Erie County Sheriff's Office, and he has been at the table since the very start of the Reentry Coalition 3.5 years ago, serving as the co-chair along with the Erie County Commissioner of Mental Health. This is a very exciting partnership because here you have law enforcement and restorative mental health providers leading a coalition of over 60 partners that are working together to build a better system to better position our reentry citizens for success rather than recidivism. So we are thrilled that Tom agreed to videotape his message, and then I will move on to our next speaker, Pastor Charles Walker, who will be speaking with us live after we hear Tom's message, providing us an overview of the work of the coalition to date. So let's roll Tom's message.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Dina, Superintendent of the Erie County Sheriff's Office Jail Management Division. It has been an honor to serve as the co-chair of the Reentry Coalition, one of the 10 initiatives of the Racial Equity Roundtable. My co-chair is Commissioner Mark O'Brien of the Erie County Department of Mental Health. The Reentry Coalition, formed in 2016, is made up of over 80 stakeholders working together to improve outcomes for reentering citizens. The odds are against reentering citizens. The county's recidivism rate is around 80%, which means that 8 out of 10 individuals booked into the local jails have been previously booked within the past 5 years. Over the past several years, our coalition has developed a clear agenda for a path forward to reduce the recidivism rate and better serve the reentry needs of individuals incarcerated in the county's 2 jails. A key to this work is ensuring we have all the partners at the table, including individuals with lived experiences. Over time, our coalition has undoubtedly strengthened partnerships around this work at the state, county, and city levels. In October of 2017, the Reentry Coalition approved of 6 recommendations after the Council of State Governments Justice Center completed a year-long planning process with us. The top 2 priorities and recommendations identified were to improve reentry services for the jail population and the establishment of a reentry center. This clear agenda, with all stakeholders in agreement at the table, has been critical to moving this work forward. The collaborative work of the coalition has already resulted in 2 federal Second Chance Act grants aimed at providing services for individuals returning to the community from our local jails, Project Blue and New Dawn. 11 months into its first year of operation, Project Blue has been highly successful, boasting a 5% recidivism rate among enrolled clients. New Dawn only just began the implementation phase this past month, but we are confident that it will be equally as successful. None of this would be possible without the support and guidance of the Community Foundation, whose efforts have resulted in the securing of $3 million in federal funds. Their dedication and adaptability to the trying circumstances presented by the COVID-19 public health crisis has allowed the work of the Reentry Coalition to continue uninterrupted. Another of the priority projects is the Service Link Stop, a one-stop shop for reentering individuals to access programs and services from more than 20 on-site partners. In a few minutes, you will hear from one of our coalition members, Reverend Charles Walker from Back to Basics. While the opening has been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis, Reverend Walker has an important update to share with you shortly. In conclusion, we are grateful for the Community Foundation's leadership and support of this important work and look forward to continuing to make progress to improve outcomes for reentering citizens to ensure that every resident has the opportunity to work and contribute towards moving our community forward. Thank you very much.
So Tom has been, as you can hear, a very effective leader of this collective effort. And as he alluded in his video, we have an important update to share about the work of the Reentry Coalition, and that's the opening of the Service Link Stop. So we have invited Pastor Charles Walker from Back to Basic Ministries, a key partner in this Service Link Stop effort, to join us live and tell us more about the Service Link Stop, which just had its soft opening and is now located just steps away from the Erie County Holding Center in downtown Buffalo. Pastor Walker, you have understood the critical need for the Service Link Stop since the coalition began this work in 2017. I will turn it over to you because I know that I have been awed and inspired by your vision of how the Service Link Stop will change the reentry experience for our reentering citizens. So without further ado, Pastor Walker, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Clotilde. I really appreciate it. And first, I just want to say it's an honor to be selected to represent Back to Basics Outreach Ministries in terms of the work that we have been doing and the success rates that we have encountered throughout the last 25 plus years. So thank you all. But with regard to the SLS, the Service Link Stop, I want to start by saying this. If only this kind of system was in place when I came home, you know, from running around from program to program all over the city, north, south, east, and west, which was very, very difficult because when I came home from prison, I was not allowed to drive. And therefore buses trying to get rides here and there, you know, going from Amherst to Bailey to Broadway, all over. But God saw fit to start something, to put a mechanism in place through the endeavors of everyone here called the Service Link Stop that would bring all service providers up under one roof, one building that would provide the needed service for all the individuals of our returning citizens. They don't have to fly across around the city. They don't have to beg for rides here and there. They can come right from the holding center to right over to us. And right from that point on, we take care of them. Right around the corner from the holding center, we have 20 on-site partners providing resources that will help them navigate back into the mainstream of life. And this has been phenomenal. And I know this has only been our soft opening for the last 2 weeks. The numbers were low, but it's okay. The numbers were there, okay? Individuals have come in and they have been provided services that they didn't know about right there up under one roof. I mean, they're spending, you know, time with the service providers, as you can see. You know, they're taking time with them, providing what they need to help them navigate back into the mainstream of life. And it has been phenomenal just on a soft opening. It hasn't even got out into the community just yet. Everywhere I go, I'm speaking about it, inviting people. Even my clients that have been referred by Spectrum, you know, they've been coming down. As you can see, we have brochures that outlines all of the services provided. And as you can see, the rack of ties provided by Ron and Pastor Giles, you know, to help them dress the part as well. We have clothes, suits, all kinds of garments for them to dress for success when we send them out on job interviews to claim that job. So, you know, it's just a one-stop a variety shop of everything that you would need to help you navigate and get back into the mainstream of life. This is called the Service Link Stop. And like I said, if only they had that when I came home in 2005, well, they didn't, but I'm here today. And I thank God for that and for you all. And we at Back to Basics Outreach Ministries, our reentry mentoring program, we have been touted as one of the top reentry programs in Western New York. And it's only by the fact that, you know, I've walked in their shoes. I have been where they're coming through. And I can tell them and show them, you know, what it's going to take for them to succeed in this thing called life. Now, who would have thought a felon coming home from prison after doing several years and now is a senior minister, a senior pastor, pastor the church, just celebrated 9 years and helping out a community, changing lives, seeing people delivered and getting back with their families, getting employed. And as you can see, our success rate, a 94.8%, 91.6% each year. But each year it has went up since 2017 when we really started to track it. Okay, our contract calls for 90. We cross that all the time. And here, one of our most important pieces is our job placement employment. We help them get jobs. Gainful employment. And we're talking about gentlemen making $15, $20 an hour. Okay, I noticed Paul Buchler was on here. You know, Paul has hired several of my guys. I thank God for individuals like Paul, who's taking a chance on guys who everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves a second chance. They gave me a second chance, and I'm not going to squander it. And they utilize me as an example. And that's what this is all about. And here are some of our places that we have guys working in right today. And our mental health counseling, okay, which is conducted and facilitated by my president and CEO, Pastor James Giles. This is what he does, okay? Counseling. We go to mental health peer counseling association as well, but we more or less do here. And we have anger management, one-on-one counseling, man up program, okay? Family strengthening through restorative justice practice. So we're trying to cover all bases. And as you can see, one of our returning citizens is getting this health care in order, okay? They come out, a lot of them don't have health care, and they come over here, we provide that to them. But now they don't have to come here. They come right out across the street to the service link stop. And that's what it's all about. Housing, you name it. Everything that they need is right there. Everything. Mentoring is the ultimate key. Mentoring, that's the ultimate key to successful citizens returning, because we help them navigate. We don't grab them by the hand, but we put that onus on them. If you want to change, then change is ready for you. And I have a dedicated staff of mentors working right with me, led by our fearless leader, Pastor Giles. And we just, they can relate to the individuals coming home, and we're able to gain that trust in them. And once we gain that trust, then, we know what to do from that point on. Amen. And here's some pictures of our graduation. If you can look in the corner, you see my wife, Elder Kendra Walker. She heads our Shifra Women's Ministry, because we do have females coming home as well. And she does a phenomenal job meeting with the women. I believe right now we have about 5, and they meet twice a month, and it's just awesome. We had 42 graduates in 2019. So with that being said, I thank you all for selecting me and for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Clotilde. Thank you, Community Foundation.
Thank you, Reverend Walker, for your leadership and partnership. I think it's easy for all of us to see what a powerful picture of the possible you paint for our returning citizens, and we are forever grateful, and we will have time towards the end of the presentations for more dialogue and Q&A. So, as I mentioned earlier, our racial equity work is centered on ensuring all residents have the opportunity to learn, work, and contribute to their community. That includes our young people. And in 2019, the Community Foundation, in partnership with the City of Buffalo, with the Buffalo Niagara Partnership, with Say Yes Buffalo, with the John R. Oshai Foundation, and with the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation, commissioned a report on the youth employment landscape in Buffalo. The group agreed to move forward with the report's recommendations, including convening a cross-sector coalition to build a strong youth employment system. Now, the 30 organizations that have joined the Youth Employment Coalition have come together to co-create a strengthened, more coordinated youth employment system that effectively connects 16 to 24-year-olds to career pathways. And one of the early pilots occurred this summer. Despite the pandemic, I'll have to say, and you'll hear more about that in just a minute, where Steve Tucker led an employment program that moved forward with the support of a public-private partnership and was adjusted for the new demands of this challenging time. So we have invited Stephen Tucker, President and CEO of the Northland Workforce Training Center, and a key partner and expert in the employment space in general, but youth employment more specifically, to join us to talk more about the work of the Youth Employment Coalition and the pilot program he launched this summer. So without further ado, Steve, please take it away.
Thank you, Clotilde, and good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate you participating in this conversation and giving me an opportunity to present. Again, my name is Stephen Tucker. I am the president and CEO of Northland Workforce Training Center. And the purpose of Northland Workforce Training Center is to train and prepare local residents for outstanding careers in advanced manufacturing and energy. The whole reason why we exist is because we are projecting to need to fill about 20,000 job openings in the advanced manufacturing and energy sectors, mainly due to retirements. a high percentage of both of those industry sectors have an aging workforce and a tremendous amount of current employees eligible to retire, which has been exacerbated by COVID-19. And we have a non-existent pipeline of young people who are just not interested or aware of outstanding careers in advanced manufacturing and energy. We go to the next slide, please. Clotilde mentioned the commission of the report to understand the landscape of youth employment. In the youth employment in Buffalo, there are currently 29,000 youth ages 14 to 21 in Buffalo. U.S. Census Bureau data from 2014 to 2018 shows that the unemployment rate for young adults in Buffalo of 17% is higher than peers in Erie County, while similar to the U.S. and the same as New York State. If you take out Buffalo from Erie County, you would see a much larger disparity than what you see at this point. And please keep in mind that these numbers and these figures were pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, the unemployment rate for Buffalo and Erie County for adults was about 4%. Now it's about 14%, which is 3 times the pre-COVID rate. So if you apply that same formula of 3 times the rate before COVID of 17%, you're looking at a youth unemployment rate at about 50%. And many of these youth employment jobs include jobs in the service sector, jobs in restaurants, jobs in hospitality, entertainment, and tourism. So due to COVID, we believe now that the youth unemployment rate for youth between 14 to 21 years old is actually 3 times the pre-COVID rate. Next slide. So the Community Foundation, they put together the Youth Employment Coalition, which is a group of stakeholders focusing together to develop strategies to build career pathways and programs exposing youth to different opportunities here locally. And one of the main objectives of the Youth Employment Coalition is to use a racial equity lens to build an action plan for creating a strengthened, more coordinated youth employment system that effectively connects 16 to 24-year-old youth to career pathways in Buffalo. Next slide. The Youth Employment Coalition priorities include seeking racial equity, working on collaboration. We have a ton of resources and programs available to serve youth. However, we are operating in silos. How do we coordinate better so that we can have better outcomes for our youth? How do we engage youth and young adults in making some of the decisions when we are developing these programs? That's another key priority. How do we also engage employers and industry partners to ensure that we are exposing the youth to the opportunities that they have, but we're also preparing youth for in-demand occupations, aligning the curriculum and the training programs, making sure the proper equipment is being deployed to help train the youth so that we can make sure that they are better prepared to enter into industry. And how do we gather and use data better in a more efficient way so that we can continuously improve the youth employment system as well as have better outcomes for young people and students. And the last priority that this coalition wanted to undertake was how do we move from programs to pathways? Why is that important? Because a program is an isolated opportunity, an isolated intervention that just delivers on a specific outcome for youth, where if you can create a pathway, you can create pathways and opportunities for people to enter into a specific industry sector, advance in an industry sector, and hopefully identify a career that will last them for a lifetime. Next slide. I'm excited to say that I met with Clotilde earlier this year and I pitched an idea to launch a summer youth academy at Northland with the purpose of exposing young people outstanding careers in advanced manufacturing and energy. And in partnership with Mayor Byron Brown, Summer Youth Employment Program, Northland delivered a fully paid 4-week immersion experience for youth interested in high-tech careers in advanced manufacturing and clean energy. Funding again for this program was provided by the Community Foundation and the Ralph C. Jr. Foundation. And there's a couple of critical components in there that I wanted to focus on. Paid training. Youth were paid $11.80 per hour to participate in this program. It was a 4-week program. Youth spent 20 hours a week learning about exciting careers in advanced manufacturing and energy. One of the major barriers to many youth is transportation. So we provided every youth with an NFTA summer bus pass. We also provided youth with an opportunity to receive an OSHA 10 certification so they can understand safety, as that's a huge requirement in the advanced manufacturing and energy sector. And we also expose students to 4 areas within advanced manufacturing. Those areas include electrical, welding, machining, and mechatronics. And once students completed the 4 weeks program, we also assisted them with completing a college application to any program or any college throughout the country of their choice. Next slide, please. The program included pre and post-program surveys. The reason why that's important, we wanted to measure the effectiveness of our intervention, as well as pre and post tests for each module. When we delivered the program through Tooling U and through Career Safe and through Edge Factor, we wanted to make sure we understand the increase in learning that youth experience by going through those particular modules. And we delivered the program 100% remotely due to COVID-19. The reason why this was important is because there was strong consideration to cancel the program, but we knew that this program would allow youth to generate income to support their families. So we felt it was critically important to move forward with the program despite COVID-19. We were able to do so by having a 1-day in-person orientation following COVID-19 guidelines requiring all youth to wear masks and to socially distance. And I'm excited to say that that went over very well. Next slide, please. The outcomes for the Summer Youth Academy, we enrolled 82 youth, 76 completed the program, which was a 93% completion rate. 76% of the students were people of color and 28% were females. This is critically important because right now in the advanced manufacturing and energy sector, less than 20% are people of color and less than 10% are females. We had 28% of the students interested in pursuing technical careers and attending Northland once they graduated from high school, and we paid a total of $53,000 in wages to the youth. So that's a brief summary of our program. I look forward to answering any questions. I would like to thank you all once again for listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Steve. Can't really just acknowledge how grateful we are for forging ahead with this important pilot program despite the significant challenges of the pandemic, and really a testament to your leadership. So thank you again. Clearly preparing our youth for the workforce of the future is absolutely central to our region's economy. Research continues to tell us about the benefits of a diverse and inclusive workforce, including enhanced innovation, increased competitive advantage, higher employee engagement, and improved talent attraction and retention. And this program and the broader Youth Employment Coalition are feeding into those very attractive dynamics for workplaces in our very own region. So more than ever before, business leaders are recognizing that they need to strengthen inclusive workplace practices in alignment with the work of the Roundtable. And a critical partner in this effort has been the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership, our regional chamber, who has taken the leadership role in this work through a number of initiatives. And to share more on a number of these key initiatives to engage employers in creating more inclusive workplaces is Laura Smith. Laura is a Vice President of Economic Development at the Buffalo-Niagara Partnership. And Laura, we know that your work has taken on added urgency this year with more voices than ever calling for racial equity in our community. And you were ready with the employer self-assessment in addition to several other training opportunities that you had been developing in the past few years. So Laura, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Clotilde. And again, thank you to everyone for having us speak on this. Next slide. So I want to just talk a little bit about the partnership's diversity and inclusion offerings. And these were all made possible through the generous support of the Community Foundation and the Walmart Foundation. A couple of the programs that we've designed are for companies that have yet to start or just beginning their diversity and inclusion efforts, and others are for the higher level companies that have been in practice for quite some time. They're at a more advanced level of their diversity and inclusion initiative. So really, the purpose was to meet employers where they are and provide tools and resources for them to move their initiatives just starting or whether they're well on their way. We've been able to move our programming virtually through this pandemic and with full participation and high success in that. You can see we've got Executive Exchange, an Academy, we've got a virtual learning series. The first one has happened already, the other two are upcoming, and we had over 150 participants in the first one, everyone staying through the Mary Frances Winters conversation. We'll have planning in person, hopefully, spring of 2021 for the next symposium. And then we have convened a group of individuals in our community that are advanced in the practices of D&I to be an executive council for our work, and they lend their expertise in that way. These offerings run on an annual basis all throughout the year. Next slide. And what I wanted to spend the bulk of the time on today, and happy to answer questions on anything presented, is as Clotilde had mentioned, the business community assessment. This is something that we had planned on doing later this year, and with the unrest happening in our community and businesses really clamoring for more assistance and resources to move their practices, we said we really better get out on the street with this assessment as quickly as possible. So what we were hoping to do and accomplish was to uncover what businesses are currently doing, where are they on their D&I journey, not just partnership members, but businesses across our Erie, Niagara counties, and then what resources do they need to advance those initiatives or get started. Next slide. So it's important to note that we wanted this work to be projectable to the whole community, not just, again, for a sector of the community or a certain size company. We put the survey together with the assistance from the Race Matters Institute, our Business Leaders Task Force with the Community Foundation, as well as the individuals that I mentioned on our Executive Council. And that what we're trying to measure here are the perceptions of businesses. Next slide. The methodology, and these next couple of slides are about the methodology and the sample set, and then we'll get into the results real quickly. So it was a 10-minute survey done this spring. We had a total sample size of 265 individuals representing 250 companies. That is a phenomenal response rate. It is projectable to the community. And for a point of comparison, our counterpart in Philadelphia had fewer than 150 companies respond to their survey. So really great engagement from the business community in Erie and Niagara counties. Next slide. So the respondent demographics, we were pointed at the CEO or C-suite to be able to respond to the survey. And you can see that a majority of those respondents are the director and above level within their organization. That said, we do have a number of staff level positions that responded to the survey, which we were quite pleased because one of the findings shows that there was a perception difference between the CEO C-suite to the staff level individuals that we'll get into. Next slide. Respondents in the company profile, we were pretty evenly split by gender, males and females, and you can see the age of the respondents is also pretty well split. Ethnicity, 86% white, and 6% Black or African American. You can see the breakdown of the rest of the ethnicities there. So between age and gender, pretty evenly split with the respondent profile. Next slide. And then you can see similarly pretty good response rate across companies based on company size. I didn't list the slide in here with all the industries, but it was also well represented. Next slide. So business community overview. Next slide. So the top line highlights, good news is 72% of the respondents said that their company has begun the D&I journey. About half of the balance of the companies that have yet to start say they will in the near future. So there is engagement in there. And company size or industry was not a factor. So basically anyone can start this journey. 6% of the respondents though had no intention of initiating those efforts. You can see that down the second bullet that the findings show that the recent events have created change in more than half of the respondents across both stages of D&I, whether they had or had not started. Next slide. Next slide, thanks. And you can see the breakdown of the respondents here, 72%. And what we found was that if you had a point person or a committee in charge of your processes, you were much more likely, 17%, to create those goals as well as achieve the goals compared to those that had not. Next slide. Some key findings, as I mentioned, the perception difference, the green bar is CEO, the blue is staff. You can see that they're quite significant, whether they agree to how far along a company is in their D&I journey. But the red box that I call your attention to is where both CEOs and staff say there is work to be done. And the red box is in the workplace culture as opposed to hiring practices. Next slide. Again, this just shows another difference between the CEO and the staff across different factors: lack of support, institutional attitudes, and hesitation to talk about difficult topics. Next slide. So those that have started their journey need to address the perception and reality regarding the need for additional training. Companies doing a better job of fostering activities or initiating activities that foster inclusion, and really be mindful of the difference in perception between C-suite and staff level. Next slide. Next slide. So you can see that 27% of the respondents have yet to begin their path to D&I. Next slide. But taking the first step is significant. Again, green, you've begun your journey. Blue, you have not. And you can see the perceptions across the board are significant. Just get started. Next slide. And next, you can see that hiring was a focus for both those that have started and not. Next slide. But we're really missing the point on the workplace culture. A bright spot for us is that employment level hiring is a focus across all levels, basically, of employment. It's not just entry level or low wage positions. Next slide. And the recommendations from this board is basically, as I said, start the work. Companies have to be much more proactive in developing their activities, as well as having a system in place to measure progress and really set those goals. That's a quick summary of our report, which will be out in the 3rd week of October.
Thank you, Laura. It really is best practice work that our regional chamber is leading, and very proud of that fact. So can't thank you enough for engaging in this really important time and being ready to lean into this moment of opportunity with such a robust set of offerings. So I'm going to kick off the Q&A part of our conversation today by asking each speaker how you are going to continue this very impressive body of work given the uncertainties we are all facing. So Reverend Walker, I'm going to start with you. What do you see as the go forward given the uncertainties before us?
Well, when you talk about preparing for the future, unknown, I like to think back on something that was told to me when I was a young fella. It kind of stuck with me, and my father told me, but you know, he wasn't in my life, but I do remember a few things he said to me, and he brought me to 5 P's, the 5 P's. Proper planning and prayers produce positivity. And let me just peel back the layers on that if I can. We have to plan for the future. We may not step into it, but we have to plan for it. Because if we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. And prayer, I'm just a firm believer, prayer unlocks everything. Okay, prayer. And we have to push while we're praying. Pray until something happens. And all of that positivity, it produces that. So with that being said, in the midst of this pandemic, and we know that it's wreaking havoc, we still have to remain mindful and have a positive outlook that we have to stay on the battlefield. We have to continue doing what we've been called to do, whether it's this or that. You've been called to do it, so we have to do it to the best of our ability, and we will reap the positive benefits in the end.
Thank you so much, Pastor Walker. I'm going to definitely remember those 5 P's. Steve, I'm going to turn it to you. Same question. How do we go forward in this time of uncertainty given your very needed work and mission?
Yeah, it's challenging, but I like to think of challenges as opportunity. And I like to follow, what Governor Cuomo and the state has been saying, how do we reimagine our future and build back better? I believe that COVID is going to accelerate the retirement cliff where we were projecting 20,000 job openings. I think a lot of folks are going to retire earlier, which will make that demand much more accelerated. So how do we operate in this COVID environment? So continue to do our outreaching and recruiting, continue to follow the COVID guidelines. We are fortunate that we just enrolled about 250 students into our program. So we still have a full program. We're recruiting about another 100 students to start in January. So we'll be over 300 students in January. We experienced a 60% program completion rate, which is twice the national average for community colleges, which is good, but it would have been better if it wasn't for COVID. We lost several students who couldn't make the transition. So to answer your question, just continue to reimagine our future, build back better. I think we're going to continue some of the key learnings that we realized going through this episode of COVID. For instance, we realized that remote admissions is working very effectively. We were able to still enroll 172 new students. So how do we continue to embrace some of those new strategies, but also look to do things better in the future? That's how I think we'll see.
Those are very strong numbers. Congratulations, Steve. And clearly the importance of the youth employment work more critical than ever. So thank you again for your partnership in that space. Laura, how do we move forward? What do you have planned for next steps?
Well, Clotilde, I think we are going to keep our foot on the gas as the data around diverse workplaces is so compelling. It's higher productivity, it's higher innovation, it's higher revenue, it's higher morale amongst employees. The fact that we still had such a high number of businesses in our survey say that they're not taking concrete action steps moving forward really reminds us that business case for diversity and inclusion has got to be as much front and center as possible. And as we deliver the programming to our employers, their ears, now is the time. I agree with Steve that this is opportunity. So we're really talking to employers about doing things differently and coming up with tools and resources for those employers, because the door is open. We need to walk right in and be able to impact. And I think collaboration is a big piece of it too, making sure that while we are all facing, smaller resources in our organizations, to be able to collaborate more together with other organizations like my two fellow speakers here is really going to be powerful moving forward.
Terrific. Thank you, Laura.